Good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to Teaching Tips Thursday. I have a ton of information to cover today. I'm excited by it. Tuesday, we talked about the civics and Constitution. We actually got the book in. This book is beautiful, and I will make sure we do a special segment on the civics and Constitution. If you didn't watch the video from Tuesday, highly recommend seeing Jake. Something we're trying to do is I'm trying to bring in some experts, different authors, different people. So we're expanding our video content. We know that you only have so much time, but we want to make sure that we're putting out a lot of great content. So Tuesdays, we're going to focus on the curriculum, talking with authors, features. We may have a time or two where we actually have to do two segments because we have a lot of new products coming out that are great. We're going to do Worldview Wednesdays. Worldview Wednesday is where I'm reaching out into our network of authors to bring in content. So Dr. Tim Clary is one of the most renowned experts on dinosaurs from a young Earth creation perspective. So he's slated to come in and talk on dinosaurs because I know that that's an issue that comes up every so often. And I want people to understand that Master Books, as a publisher, we create curriculum, but we have a network of PhD scientists, theologians, physicians, you name it. We have resources that we can dig into. So when we talk about dinosaurs, we make the assumption everybody understands that we work with experts in the industry, and so it's credible. We've probably been faulty in that assumption, and so what I'm doing is I want to make sure that you actually hear from some of these experts. When you hear Dr. Jason Lisle talk about the importance of teaching logic and teaching biblical creationism and worldview to our students, it's amazing how brilliant this person is, and he does such a good job. And he's out there defending this all the time. Or like this Tuesday, when you hear Jake McCulley speaking on the Constitution and he's talking about real world applications, it just helps solidify who Master Books is and the resources that we're digging into to create the curriculum that we do. So Worldview Wednesday is something that'll be starting here in another couple weeks. We're working on programming and lining up authors and experts to talk about different things there. And then Teaching Tips Thursday we'll continue to do. So more and more, I think you'll see more content coming that I hope helps you in becoming a more effective home educator and growing as well. So that Master Books, we want to take a more holistic approach in that it's not just, here's our curriculum, do it. We also want to come alongside you and say, here are experts who've been homeschooling for a lot of years. Here's some of the things that they've learned, things that they wish people had told them. Here are some experts in the industry that we rely on. And as you build these answers and build your arsenal, I think that'll be really helpful. So I'm going to cover we're going to do some rapid fire things today. One of the last year we talked a lot about the importance of giving your homeschool a name, having a mission statement, doing a strengths, weakness, opportunities, a SWOT analysis, having a goal and a destination. And so my question for you, and this is where we're going to go from the next few weeks, will really be setting our homeschools up for the 2019-2020 academic year and more from a systems approach and being prepared. But before we move into that, what I'd like to ask you is, did you reach your goals? Are your students better academically? Did they grow spiritually? Did they grow emotionally? Sometimes in homeschooling, one of the things that happens is we tend to approach it two different ways. Imagine if I'm taking a trip, right? We just went to the Grand Canyon. We found an address and we mapped it out and we got on the road and we went to that destination. If there was a detour or the road was closed or there was a major storm, which we encountered a major hailstorm, and everything stops, we're able to go off the road, continue in the direction we're going, get back onto the route that we intended, and reach our destination. because we had a system in place. We knew where we were going. We knew the direction we were going. And so that's where we were heading. So sometimes in homeschooling, though, what happens is we get in the car and we see where every other car is going. And so we think, oh, those people must know where we're going. So we get in the car and we just start following everybody. And we didn't actually define where we're going, what's important for us and our children. We just start following people. And 2 or 3 years later, we're just chasing all these cars. Oh, here's a car and we follow that car. Here's a car and we follow that car. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to go through that, to have that mentality of trying to chase every car. So the important thing is, did you meet your goals? But what were your goals? Did you know what the goals were? Do you have systems in place to actually reach those goals, right? We don't reach the goals. People tend to fall to the level of our systems. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. But the food for thought is really, did you meet your goals? Do you know the destination? What's important for your family? Start thinking about those things. Not just where's everybody else going. I see a highway and I see cars going. Those people must know where they're going. That's what happens when we follow public school. And I'll tell you that the road that most education is on is taking you to the wrong destination. So that's what we're going to talk about with that. Today I'm going to do a rapid fire question and answer. We had some fantastic questions. I'm looking forward to getting into those. Before I do, I'm going to read a review that was sent to me this morning by our publicist, Brittany. And she said, this is what the reviewer said. We started math lessons for a living education 4 at the beginning of the school year, but after about 6 weeks, we switched to a different program out of fear that math lessons 4 wasn't enough. We talk about this ad nauseum, but I'm gonna keep it to you. After about 3 weeks of the other program, my daughter and I were miserable. So we tried another popular program, and after 3 or 4 weeks, we realized my daughter was not retaining anything, and she needed my help with every step of her math problems. So we started math 4, it wasn't enough, moved to another, it wasn't enough, moved to another. Now mom has to be there helping with every step of the math. At that point in the school year, I had already went over my math budget for a year, having bought 3 different math programs, so I decided to pull Math Lessons 4 off the shelf again. As I was going through the book to find a good starting point, I was shocked to realize Math Lessons for a Living Education 4 had the same exact content as the other 2 popular and more rigorous programs had. We easily found a good starting point in the book and picked back up with lessons without missing a beat. Finally, my daughter and I were enjoying math more than ever. Also, she was gaining confidence. She needed to do much of her lessons independently. She finished the year strong in math, and the end of the year, her standardized test scores improved 2 grade levels this year after using Math Level 4. We cannot wait to begin Level 5 next year. Very thankful for that review and for the honesty of that review. Here's my swagger in the market. We're not stupid. We've been homeschooling. We pull in resources from people who homeschool. We have a better way of homeschooling, quite honestly, than a lot of the curriculums that are out there. There are a lot of great solutions. We've used and do use other curriculum solutions, even in our homeschool. But we stand behind the integrity of the Master Books curriculum and with Math Lessons for a Living Education. When you cut away the nonsense and you cut away the drill and kill and you just focus on an application-based program, you get good results. And we're seeing that in standardized test scores and reviews like this. So if you're on the fence and maybe you've been in groups and you hear people say, oh, I don't think it's enough and stuff like that, may I just encourage you to understand the nature of that debate, that we're used to objective-based education, where I need to reach these objectives. And Master Books, we're big on application-based resources, where we want them to understand how to use it, not just understand what it is. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's get right into our questions. And be sure to comment for a chance to have 2,500 reward points added to your account. And I probably drank too much coffee today, so forgive me if I'm speaking too fast or or stepping on too many toes. Okay. So Erica asked, we got biblical beginnings for our kindergarten special needs and felt it was more appropriate. It didn't have the phonics book, but the curriculum does integrate phonics work in it, correct? Very basically, there may be a little bit of phonics in that, but our approach is kindergarten should be more of a prep. It's building stamina, building motor skills, building emotional skills, those type of things. We don't believe in rushing kindergarten students. There's too much going on in the brain at that time to start trying to make them be college students. So our approach is enjoy kindergarten, develop those skills that prepare you for the next 12 years of learning. And in first grade is when we would recommend foundation phonics in the first semester, and then moving to basic language skills, or eventually it'll be language lessons for a living education. So I would say in this case, especially kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, I would relax a little bit, and just as long as they're learning and developing in those skills and the stamina, you're good. But our approach would be foundation phonics in grade 1. Okay. Katie asked, can we please see reviews for Simply K, Adventures in Creation, Math Lessons for Living Education K? And will we ever attend an Arizona convention? As far as the Arizona convention, we do have a vendor that represents us there. It is a bookstore. They go with the Master Books banner, but I know that they have their own pricing and those types of things, but they do have a lot of books and resources that they take to that show in Arizona. It's in Phoenix. Is next Tuesday, I have the privilege of having Carrie Lindquist. She's going to be joining me live, and we're going to be talking about Foundation Phonics, and we're also going to be talking about Adventures in Creation. I will try to have a sample available as well. I know it's early, so it would be kind of a draft sample. Projects tend to come together pretty quickly once the drafts are all agreed upon and the formats are set up. Some of the other curriculums, I know some of the details are still being worked out in the templates and that type of thing, so I don't really have a good preview for you at this time. Okay, so let's see. Chantel says, I'm really having a difficulty deciding which writing stance to start with my 8th and 5th graders. I've read the descriptions many times. Okay, so I would, if your student is brand new to writing, has a basic understanding, can write a sentence, go with beginning 1. If your students are weak or struggling, don't have much writing, but are probably above the beginning 1 of how to write a decent sentence, I would start with beginning 2. Beginning 2 used to be the equivalent for writing strands. It used to be the equivalent of writing strands 3, which originally was the entry level into the series. So for most people, I'm comfortable recommending beginnings 2. If you need to, do it at an accelerated level, right? Just focus on the writing component, do it for half a semester, and then jump into intermediate 2. But I think for most students, that beginning 2 is probably a good place. So if your 5th grader has had any kind of writing, you may be okay using beginning 2 with them. If they need help just understanding word choices and some basic grammar and grammar usage, then they're probably better doing beginning 1. Okay, I know that's a quick answer, but there's a lot of information. I've done series on writing strands, and then in the group, you may even, some people have done this where they've had their student write a sentence or write a paragraph and then put it up for the group and ask, what would you say? So you may try that as well, even though I know that's much more vulnerable. Okay. Jamie says, I'm at a loss. My 7-year-old just finished her first grade year, and she can only read words, CVC words. She is struggling learning to read, and I'm looking into having her tested for dyslexia. Okay, so here's my approach. On 5th, 6th, 7-year-olds, I would relax a little bit. We've had, out of our 9 students, we've had early early readers and we've had late readers, and so much is happening in the brain right here. And learning to play, building stamina, memory skills, right? There's just a basic memory test. Can you give them a minimum of 4 different numbers, and they will remember and retain? Because what happens a lot of times, like one of my daughters was struggling to read, and the reason was her memory skills needed to be built. So in order to do phonetics-based reading, you have to be able to remember, I think it's at least 3 or 4 numbers, right? So your average phone number, let me think, 7 plus the 3, so it's 10 numbers, and I think that's kind of where we are. Most people can remember 7 numbers. So if you give a sequence of numbers very quickly to your student, can they repeat them back to you? And how many can they do? So if I say 5, 3, 2, can you repeat that back to me? If they can, give them a series of numbers and see how well they can repeat that back. You might be able to find some more information on this on the internet as well, but it's basically, in order to do phonics, I have to be able to remember, well, let me say a word that I see. Teaching. Teach-ing is 2 syllables, so I have to remember 2 different sounds. But if I'm doing phonics, I'm remembering t, I, ich, ing, right? So there's 4 different sounds that I have to kind of remember to put that back together. Some students don't have that skill built yet, so it's very hard to read a bigger word because they have to be able to remember multiple sounds to put it back together after they've gotten to it. And so by the time they get to the end of the word, they've forgotten the first sounds. And so it's very frustrating. My suggestion is practice, relax. We have 12 years to catch our students up, and so just don't get stressed out. Know that every student is an individual, which leads into the next question. Devery says, we're just around friend's daughter with the same grade and she reads fluently. Yay for her. And it got me a little concerned. I thought they were doing okay, but after seeing that, I'm trying to decide if we spend the summer practicing. Again, every child is unique. And so if you have a sparkler who starts reading early, we had a student, he was 4 years old. He started watching the Leapfrog DVDs with sound, how to read and Leapfrog, and he taught himself to read. After the student right before him, where it took us, she was probably 7, 8 years old before she really kicked in and started reading. And he's at 4. And usually people will say, well, girls mature faster. Well, she didn't, but he did. So every student is unique. And the question, and it goes back to, what is the destination? What are we trying to accomplish with our students? If we're just chasing every other car that drives past, trying to reach the destination that they're headed towards, I think that's exhausting. And especially because our children are so unique and so individual, right? Even I still can't tell you what's best for your student because I don't know what your home is like. I don't know what your child is like. I don't know what you're like as a teacher. I don't know how you're reading the curriculum. It's so individualized. We can give generalizations, and that's what standards are. That's what averages are. All of these are generalizations. But if your child falls outside of that average range, it's okay. You just adapt it as long as you know what the goal is. So by the time my students reach graduation, what is the goal that I have for them? Well, the goal that I have for them is that they're able to read, obviously, comprehend, and communicate. And so that's, as long as we're working towards that goal, I think we're good. Doesn't mean that there aren't times that students aren't struggling or there's not a shutdown or those type of things that need to be addressed. But a lot of times it's just pressure we put on ourselves because somebody else's kid is reading really fluently or whatever. I'm going to tell you, I remember being in school, and I would consider myself in a lot of ways more of a struggling learner. And a lot of it came down to the memory, short-term memory, being able to recall from short-term memory. And as we've moved into life, I've been able to adapt in some ways and to far excel over some of the students that did so well reading, coloring, answering questions. Your student's ability to read fluently or not read fluently is not the sentence for who they're going to be as a person. In fact, there are so many billionaires who either have dyslexia, were kicked out of school, failed school, quit college, and stopped following every other car, if you will, and became successful. But they didn't fit into the box. And I would just caution everybody not to be too concerned about making our kids fit into the box in the average and just teaching the individual student. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Kel says, my third kid couldn't read, and then all of a sudden after turning 9, he could. He has passed my older 2 in reading abilities. They really struggle, and he has had at least the least reading instruction of any of them. So sometimes it's just waiting. Absolutely agree. Okay. My kids are coming from public school. This is Bree, says, my kids are coming from public school. As we parents have never been taught young earth anything, where would we start as a family? My oldest is 12 in 6th grade. Okay, so Master Books has a lot of resources. We can go as deep on this topic as you want. Some of the beginning places I would look at is Evolution versus God. It's a DVD that we have on our website. The Atheist Delusion, I think that would be a good resource. Genesis, Paradise Lost. I had Eric Hoven on with me recently. This would be a really good resource to start as a family to watch this DVD. We have a lot of other resources as well. The Age of the Earth by Dr. Andrew Snelling. Dr. Snelling is brilliant in what he does, but will very quickly go over your head. But if you want something in depth about the age of the Earth from a geology standpoint, stuff like radiometric dating and all these different things that we think we know, I definitely would recommend something like that. Or the Age of the Earth, not the Age of the Earth, the Ice Age, different. If there's different confusion points that you have, like the Ice Age, Michael Ord would definitely be somebody to look into, but we have a lot of DVD resources. And so I would probably suggest starting with a DVD resource for getting familiar with some of those. But start with one more like Genesis, Paradise Lost, that's going to be to the masses, not necessarily to the science. And then you can expand it and go deeper from there. Okay. Let's see. Yes. Melody, how do you deal with screen time or video games? We set limits. We have a video day, and there's a certain amount of time. They can do 30 minutes a day or an hour a day each. Those days, like Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, nothing on the weekend, those type of things. Kristen sets that up. And I highly recommend that you do have limits to games because of what science is teaching, what's happening to our brains being connected. Even we adults need to know this thing is consuming us, and it's hurting our brains. We need the same controls. Okay, let's see. Okay, how do you know it's enough? Trying not to compare to other kids, but it's hard. We don't want to put all the work in and have them behind. So that's the good question. But my question is, enough of what? What is it that you're concerned about? And what does behind mean? And I think qualifying that will help you understand the question that you're asking, right? And I don't mean to minimize that, but what becomes the standard of what enough is? And when we see with the curriculum that we have, kids are enjoying the curriculum. They're doing a grade or two ahead of standardized test scores. They're retaining the information they have because it's application based. And so we see testimony after testimony after testimony of that. And then immediately following that, I'll have, is it enough? And I would let me say a curriculum like Apologia Science. when you talk about high school level Apologia science being rigorous, 100%. A student's going to get a lot of facts and figures, and they're going to get a solid, good science curriculum with Apologia science. They are. And what's the difference between, say, Apologia science and Master Books science? Master Books Science is going to cut a lot of the extra stuff out. It's going to focus on a very application-based. It's going to try to engage the student so that the student is excited about learning. Because if you excite me about learning about something, I'm going to go much farther than I ever will if you tell me what I'm going to learn and when I'm going to learn it. So once you engage the student and they're starting to enjoy learning, then we can begin to apply that knowledge. And as they apply that knowledge, they're going to understand that knowledge. So they're not just getting book knowledge. They're not just studying to take a test. They're actually learning to apply the knowledge. It's application-based knowledge. That's what I think Master Books is beginning to emerge as. We've been developing books and resources for 40 years. We've been developing a homeschool curriculum since 2012, seriously developing for the homeschool market since 2012. So in that last 7 years, as we've been developing curriculum, and our educational philosophy is really beginning to manifest itself in our products, what I'm seeing is we're just a great application-based curriculum. And we do that from a very biblical perspective, but that's the difference. So when somebody says, is it enough? Like the quote that I read at the beginning where the mom saw it and she's like, oh, this isn't enough. So we switched to another curriculum and then to another curriculum and then back to the original curriculum, only to realize we were teaching the same concepts. We had just cut out a lot of the extras and cut out the friction points and the things that were bothering people. So I'm confident saying that Master Books curriculum is enough. This may come up at another question, but what we tend to see is, so somebody says, well, my third grader is bored. In fact, I got one. Lauren, one of the last questions. Lauren says, I see many reviews on how Master Books is great for the reluctant learner or the struggling learner. We used it with a kid who loves school. How do you use it with a kid who loves school and rises to challenges easily? We did science with Master Books this year, and my kid said it was boring, too easy, and the experiments were way too simple. They knew what would happen before they did them. I'm not sure it's our best fit academically. So here's my advice in that student. Move them on up. Let them do General Science 1, General Science 2. Master Books has enough depth in our curriculum and enough options that if they're in second and third grade and they're bored, move them into a more intense solution. What you'll find with Master Books is we start out a little bit more gentle in the beginning rather than trying to overwhelm and frustrate a first, second, third grader. So we try to give them basics, make learning fun, engage them. By the time you get to sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, and into high school, you're ahead of a lot of the other programs. Only that, your students are engaged. I mean, we have testimony after testimony of students who were beginning to hate school. The homeschool was and they switched over, kind of a last-ditch effort, to Master Books. And all of a sudden, their students started falling in love with the curriculum and learning. It's about the learning, right? And so all of a sudden, and even parents that said, my kids will never do that, are coming back and saying, it happened. We couldn't believe it. We were so excited. So I know in this group, there's enough people who've experienced what I'm talking about that you can speak into this as well. But you're not limited by Master Books. When we say third grade, that's a general recommendation. We hate putting grade ranges on our curriculum, but we have to because it's the only way the market can relate to us. What we want you to do is imagine you're the carpenter, the curriculum is a tool. There are a lot of different hammers. Not every hammer is right for every job. Now, there's one hammer in the toolbox that's pretty generic and pretty general that will work in most applications. But a roofing hammer is much different than a general hammer. And so if you feel as the carpenter that your students aren't benefiting from the use of this one curriculum, I would recommend that you move them up into something more challenging. And I mean, if you're in, say, a third grade and you are using science starters or maybe God's Design for Beginners or one of those, move them into zoology for a sixth grader, or move them into general science. Okay. The Canadian shipping did come up today. I answered that. Sarah had asked, says we're constantly saying we're looking for a better solution, wondering if there's any update. And just so happens, Amy commented on that as well. A lot of times what people don't realize with shipping is it's not just the shipping costs. There are tariffs, there's fees, there's a lot of extra labor that goes into shipping internationally. And what we try to do as a company, we've been selling books into other countries for a lot of years. What we try to do is work with distributors. So like in Canada, we have Word Alive, Amazon, Learning House, Canadian Home Education Resource, Share. I know that there's a couple others that we sell to in the Canadian market. They actually come into the U.S. We'll pick up product. They work to get product in and then make sure that they can sell it affordably and ship it reasonably into that market. We do the same thing in Australia, South Africa, the U.K., India. Any place that we have distributors that we can work with to sell product that's the preferred method we have, because it's just easier. So I realize it's frustrating, but there is no easy fix. When you get a shipping fee that says it's $250 in shipping into Canada, a lot of the reason that you're getting that is it's shipping plus tariffs. It's shipping plus other costs, and those are real-time feeds that are coming from our providers. Sometimes we can find a shipping rate that's a little bit cheaper, but most times we're not making money on shipping. I've said this a lot of times over the last 3 years, but oftentimes shipping is an expense for us. It's not a profit center at all. So hopefully that was helpful, and anytime you have a question, you're welcome to post it or to contact us directly. Shout out to Aubrey too. Amy said Aubrey was awesome. Aubrey, we are very blessed to have Aubrey as part of our team. She answers the phones here. She's the office manager, and she keeps the machine running for us all. So she's the one who usually calls in. My phone quit working, so they disconnected it, and it's been very peaceful in my office today. Let's see. This may have been addressed before. Casey says, this fall will be my first year homeschooling. Grew up in the church, but after finding Master Books, I'm seeing young earth perspectives that she isn't familiar with. I showed you a few of the resources like Genesis, Paradise Lost that I would recommend as a starting point. A lot more resources. And again, in this group, we'll be bringing in experts that will also be helping answer some of these questions and debates that we see come up from time to time, so that you understand that when Master Books says that we believe the earth is only 6,000 to 8,000 years old, it's based on scientific evidence that we have a number of scientists that are giving us the evidence to look at that worldview from, and this is what the evidence looks like. So hopefully that will be helpful as well. Let's see, new to Master Books, Isaac and Antonella says, new to Master Books, looking into using this for upcoming school year. I have 4 kids, 11, 9, 7, 5. Can I combine history and science, or does each child need their own grade level? Completely up to you. You can combine and do multi-grade, one-room classroom style approach with our curriculum. You may have to adapt it a little bit. Ideally, when we put a grade level on, it would be the most open and go for that grade level. If you use it outside of that, then you have a little bit of adapting that needs to take place. Back to the carpenter analogy, we trust that you know your students, your capabilities, the best, and we trust you that when you take a resource, if you feel that it's suitable for a student that's younger than we recommended, or suitable for a student that's older than we recommended, that you're smart enough to know what's best for your situation. So yes, you can combine them. You wouldn't need individual for each child, but we do caution you may need to adapt it a little bit depending on how far outside the ranges you are. Okay. Is it possible to add different shipping options such as second day overnight? The only option is Best Way. Anderson Jade asks. Due to logistics, Anderson, it's just not. We've from an e-commerce standpoint, the volume that we have, the number of markets that we ship to, the weight of the books that we ship to, and the way our systems operate, it's just logistically not possible at this time. So we try to use the best solution we can to best serve the most amount of people we can, and that's what we have. So okay. Tabitha wants to know how Kristen is doing. For those of you who don't know, Kristen is my wife. Kristen is also the curriculum development editor here at Master Books. A couple months ago, Kristen was diagnosed with breast cancer, and so she has been undergoing chemotherapy. She was expected to go through chemotherapy yesterday, but woke up with the flu. For those who have large families, you understand post-vacation crud. And once one family member catches a germ, it seems like it runs through the whole family. We went on vacation with 22 people. So I'm kind of in some ways the last man standing. And you know what a scary thing that is when all you see your family dropping like flies. But Kristen is doing well. She's responding to the chemo treatments, and she has an excellent attitude. And the prayers of this group and others that are in our lives, that the Lord has brought into our lives, we know are just being answered. God is an amazing, he's just amazing. He's an amazing healer. He's an amazing provider. He's an amazing caretaker. And we thank you and appreciate your concern and your prayers, because we know that it has carried us through this. And we also recognize that there are a lot of other families in this group who are experiencing difficulties and trials and tribulations. And we do lift you up in prayer as well. Our moderators pray for this group. And our heart is to see everybody succeed that is part of the Master Books family. So thank you, Tabitha. Let's see, Tiffany Cummings, I need a step-by-step input for audio listening. Audio, some devices do play audio. Sometimes if you have an older student in the family, having them read the content doesn't hurt, almost like they become the teacher and they're going to learn as well. I realize that there's a demand for us to have audiobooks. It's a challenge. And having a quality product that can be sold with the right voices and all of that, it takes a lot of resources. Right now, our energy is focused on developing the physical book resources. As we mature and grow as a company and we have more of the core resources developed, we will begin to go back and develop ancillary supplemental products. We've talked about a lot of different things like manipulatives and wall posters for the classroom and different things like that. Those will come, but our team is already doing more than they can be expected to do. We're close to the burnout threshold, and there's just no way we can ask more. And that project would just require a lot more. And when you look at the economics of something like that, audiobooks and audio projects just do not sell as well as the physical and printed products. So it's something that has to come after the fact, not before the fact, because there just isn't the return on the investment up front to make that happen. Hopefully I made that understandable enough. Okay. Wanting to use For You They Signed in 9th grade, is this considered American history or do I need to add to it? I wouldn't personally call it an American history course. I think it focuses on one time period. It would be a great elective. It'd be a great supplement. I don't think I would be comfortable saying it's an American history at high school level. So for 9th grade, I would probably be more comfortable adding to that course if you did it, but it really doesn't cover enough of American history to give you the full scope and sequence of a traditional 9th grade history, right? It's only the Constitution, which is pivotal and important in our country for sure, but you miss so much more American history. So, okay. I've yet to use this curriculum, but I have a child with special needs. What makes this curriculum different than other curriculums out there? Well, application-based is certainly the one that I would highly recommend. Kristen we sold curriculum. We had a curriculum company that sold all the major lines: Apologia, ACE, Life Pack, Switched On Schoolhouse, Saxon, all the major Christian faith-based lines or Christian-friendly lines. We did that for 8 years, and then we sold to Christian book distributors. But in that time, we learned what works, what doesn't work, what in each of those systems is resonating with families. They liked Switched On Schoolhouse or ACE because it was independent, or there were daily schedules. It was easy for a parent. They liked some of the curriculums like Apologia or BJU because maybe it offered enough engaging topics and had a little bit of rigor to it, but was more engaging. And so a lot of what we've done in our curriculum, it's a hybrid of a lot of successes that we've seen. We also had the experience of understanding what were the friction points, what were the failure points of the other curriculums that people would bring it in and start using it and then get discouraged and then want to quit homeschooling or start looking for another curriculum. So we've tried to build on the successes and remove as many friction points as possible in the curriculum. When you're talking about special needs, those friction points are often magnified, right? If I have a math curriculum that is drill and kill and it's all objective based, we're going to learn math and we're going to learn how to add. And it's not teaching application. And that's where we're application based. Why are we learning math? Well, because we're going to bake a pie with grandma, and we need to understand that a quarter cup and a quarter cup equals a half a cup. So we can use a half a cup here. Now we've made it more application based and we're tying into other parts of the brain. And so I think in some ways the curriculum, especially why it's resonating well with special needs, is because those friction points, we're sensitive to it and we've tried to remove that. We want short lessons. There's no reason that a student has to sit and do 20 pages of math a day. If you can teach the concept and improve retention, there's no need to continue killing the person with practice. And so by removing that, we're finding that students are gaining it, they're getting excited, and they're able to apply the concepts better. So that would be my very short pitch for it. The other thing I would say is we have multiple solutions. So we have 4 different types of language grammar curriculums available for like high school or junior high. So if one style doesn't fit your approach or your student, it's easy enough to adjust that and use another curriculum type that does. Okay. Any chance there will be a 9th to 12th grade math curriculum in the style of 7th to 8th grade books? Christy asks. Yes. Algebra 2 is in process. Kate, I know her as Kate Loop. It's Hannon is her new name. But Kate Loop, who wrote Principles of Mathematics 1 and 2. Sorry, Kate, if you're watching it, I didn't know your last name. Principles of Math 1 and 2, she and her husband are actually writing Algebra 2. And I am so excited about it. She's going to be showing some samples, but just things like understanding. One of the samples that I saw recently was a giraffe's neck and the mathematics that it takes for a giraffe to be able to get a drink of water without passing out. And the student is actually working that out in Algebra 2 from a creation-based perspective. Nothing else like it in the world. I am so excited about it. So yes, Master Books will be coming out with more math as we go. And again, as you see more of the core products filled in, you're going to see a lot more products like maybe a consumer math or art or music or these type of things begin to come in as well. Okay. Looking for an intense, not basic science for middle high school. My dear daughter is planning to be a vet, so she needs the meat. Okay, so I think if you take an applied approach and you did the zoology course and you actually understand animal kinds, that course, everything that's in that course, if you actually got that for a junior high student or an upper elementary student, you're going to better prepare them for becoming a vet than if you give them a rigorous curriculum in junior high, where they are required to remember a lot of facts and figures to pass a test, but aren't necessarily applying or learning it. That's my approach and my argument. My daughter works for a vet. Most of what she learned happens on the job when she's having to figure out what are CCs and how does this work. Most people in the medical profession will tell you that through college, you don't really get into the medical side or becoming a doctor until you're actually in college into your graduate work or beyond your 4-year. So from this approach, I think my recommendation is you tailor the education towards the student's interest, towards animals and animal kinds and biology. If you feel that the rigor equals knowledge, then quite honestly, I'm going to tell you, you probably would be happier choosing a course or a curriculum that focuses on rigor. Because you're going to feel that that's what the student needs for their experience, where we're going to believe that application, and I mean, when you do our biology course, this new biology is insanely good, but the advanced pre-med, any of these types of things, I think you're going to walk away with a greater application-based understanding of the topic. But that's not what we're always struggling with. It's not necessarily because again, let's go back into the cars, right? I see everybody else driving this way, and even though I know I don't want to go that way, I see everybody going that way, so I feel I need to go that way. That's what we're wrestling against a lot of times when we're talking about I need more, or it needs to be rigorous, or those types of things. Our approach is, if that's what you feel you need to do for you, then we would encourage you to do that. We'd encourage you to follow the other cars. If you know where you're going and you see the tool that we have that works, then I would encourage you then to find the best tool to apply that. So I don't want to sound condescending in any way, but there's different philosophies here, and sometimes Master Books feels like we wrestle against where everybody sees what's going on the highway, and we're like, but as long as we know the destination, and I feel like once people get into the program and are using it, the light bulb moment goes, oh my goodness, I get it. My kid is enjoying this. My family's discussing it. Our whole family is learning and growing. Now I understand why homeschooling is so much fun and education works. And I don't believe that that's the experience that everybody is having in homeschool, because sometimes they're just using the wrong tool. Can you imagine if you had to pound a box of nails and all you had was wrenches and saws? It doesn't work very well. So that's my belief. Okay. Kimberly says, we are behind in language arts. As a new family, my son started in language lessons for living education 2 to fill in gaps from our old curriculum. When it comes to grammar and writing, we're working through one lesson. They're working through lessons at an accelerated rate. So my first question would be, again, what is behind? And I realize that when we look at the standards and we see where everybody else is, sometimes it's easy to see they should be a little farther ahead on the journey. We only have today. We don't have the past. So let's start with today. Where are they? Are they learning? Are they engaged? Are they growing? As long as that's happening, then I think you do well to place the student there. Now, if they're capable of doing more, if they're in 5th grade and you put them at a 2nd grade level or a level 2, they should be able to do that, right? They should be able to do like a week a week's worth of work in a day. They should have the stamina, the brain power, the intellectual and emotional capabilities to do that. So you could challenge them a little bit to what we would call that is a learning gap. And with learning gaps, they can accelerate. And also, I would say, though, don't discourage them. If there's something that they've already learned or mastered, then you could skip a section in a book too, or you can use it as reinforcement. What you're going to see in this is the student is actually going to be challenged, but they're going to get excited because they have a win. And a lot of students, by the time they reach like 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, they're so emotionally beat down from the past failures with curriculum that they give up. And allowing a student to have some wins at an accelerated level helps build their confidence again. If you didn't see the interview with Alexa that I did last week while I was in Arizona, where she pretty much considered herself not to be good in math, and now she's gone through Principles of Math 1 and Principles of Math 2, and she's doing algebra, and she's like starting to like math and feel good that she's good at math. That just excites us beyond words. So, okay. Tabitha, what is the vision for Master Books? We're just going to continue doing what we do. We want to see you succeed. We want to create for our families. We want families to excel, and we want you to know that we believe that your students are called by God to encounter a generation and be world changers. I believe every one of the students who are represented in this group are world changers, and they are going to face battles that we could never imagine facing, temptations, conflicts, worldviews that have just gone crazy. They're going to have to stand up and be the voice of reason. They're going to be the ones who carry forward the kingdom and the message of Jesus Christ. And our hope is to prepare your students to do that, to partner with you to do that. So we're going to continue producing curriculum, improving the curriculum we have to be sure that everything we're producing helps you win and succeed. Okay. Let's see. Cal says, how do you decide which history, science, social studies is best, especially if a student is struggling? The goal for us is learning. So don't, at this point, when your student is struggling or your student is advanced, throw the grade levels and the grade ranges apart and look at what are they interested in, what will challenge them but not overwhelm them, and then choose accordingly. If you have an older student who is struggling to read and would do better with a junior high or upper elementary course, I would recommend going that direction rather than trying to push them through something where there's no benefit, and then they're going to have to graduate and then try to find something to do with themselves and re-educate themselves for that field anyways. That's a whole nother teaching topic. Okay. And then one other person, Kel asks, how do you actually do the activities and experiments? My kids want the activities and experiments, but it seems like so much extra work having to make sure you have the supplies, set up, clean up, etc. Yes. A lot of this is a lot of extra work. Homeschooling is work, and we have to know that going into it. And let's be honest, though, sometimes there are seasons where for our families, watching a season of Mythbusters helps us reinforce the scientific concepts we have. And it's not because we don't have a desire. And there are other seasons where we can buy the kits and we can enjoy that. Sometimes bringing in a dad or a grandfather, if you have a hands-on mechanical grandfather or uncle or somebody in the family who's kind of good at it, to say, hey, I know you love doing this and my kids really need somebody that would be willing to do this. Would you ever step in and kind of be our science coach? If I get you the supplies or you tell me what to get so we can teach the kids some of these concepts and be creative with it. If it's an older student, sometimes the older students can work with the younger students, and so they're going to learn, but we learn more from teaching than we do from doing, so much that I think asking the older students to do that. Co-ops are another great way. I know a lot of families that do co-ops because then there's an economies of scale involved in it as well. But experiments are one of the friction points that homeschoolers face. Oftentimes, that's why we don't have heavy lab-based courses, is because we know that a lot of heavy lab-based courses don't actually get done. But we are promoting products now that have more labs for the market that is desiring that. So just some brief points there. Okay. Hopefully we touched on some things that were helpful. I went way long on this one, but we will, any questions that you have, I'll go through and watch this, and I know the moderators do as well, and we'll try to provide some more information. And we just want you to know that we are thinking about you as you wrap up the 2018-2019 school year. And we are praying that this was a blessed year, and we are looking for ways to help come alongside you to make sure that 2019-2020 academic school year is an even more blessed year, an even greater year of growth for you and your students. And so we'll be talking a lot more about that in the future. So the thing to think about for next time is, did we reach our goals? And what is our goal? Is it just following every other car as they're headed to their destination, or do we actually have a defined destination we're headed to? All right, pray it was a blessing. You guys have a fantastic week. May God bless you and keep you. Talk to you later.